Welcome to Kolor Me Mama, the podcast in which Black moms are celebrated, encouraged, and inspired to color outside the lines. I'm your host, Ashley Shante, and head mama in charge. I'm happy you have joined me for another episode. Let's chat.
Okay, so I would like to introduce a very special guest today. Her name is Jacki Leon. Jacki is a BACP accredited integrative counselor specializing in children and young people. And very special to this podcast, she's also a mother of a Black son. And so today I want to talk to Jacki about all the things of her profession, of course, but first things up, mothering. So hi, Jacki. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Love the invite.
Yes. When I met you, like I said, at first I was like, oh, I'm just meeting her because like our paths hadn't crossed before, but I'm glad that we did meet.
Yeah. Nothing before its time.
Nothing before its time. Everything happens in its time. So what I wanted to first start, you know, obviously I know you're a mother and you're mothering a Black son. But I wanted to know, and it's a question I always ask my guests, what ingredient went into being the mother that you are right now? Like, how were you raised by your mother? I know you can kind of truncate it, but how, like, in what ways did your mother raise you, good and bad things that you kind of said, you know what, I'm gonna take a little bit of that into my mothering? What are some of those things?
Great question. I would say my mother showed me strength and focus. Very hardworking lady. She's a single mother. I too have found myself in single motherhood. So I had a role model to kind of see how to do it. It didn't, I didn't doubt that I could if I needed to make the decision to be a single parent, not because of it wanting to be that way, but if I found myself in a situation where it came about, I knew I got this.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it done.
You've seen it before.
Yes. So, and I think what I learned from my mother is she raised, for the era that I was raised in, which was, I was a small child in the 80s and the 90s, for that era of that generation, of that culture, which is Caribbean culture in Britain, it was very typical to have many mothers. My mother had me and then went away to work and gave me to my godmother, my grandmother, my aunts. So I was raised by many mothers. So my mum is a unique individual that I cannot be replaced, but I had many mothers. I had godmothers raising me, my grandmother raising me, all my aunts, my uncles as well. And so it really was that village raising a child.
Yeah,
it was, that was quite typical of that era, of that time.
Yeah, same in the US too, actually, at that time. Just sadly, a lot of that has gone away, but yeah.
Yeah. So my mum worked away while she was training to be a nurse, and then we would visit every weekend, and it was like that probably till about age 7-ish. And then I was with my mum on a permanent basis, but still all these other women were still very much part of my life.
Yeah, they were making contributions
very much so.
Yeah, the way you were being raised. Yeah.
And so that influenced my parenting, as in, though it's me and my child, he has a very close connection to my mother, to his aunts, to the extended family, and any other females that I introduced into his life that could be that person, he's to address them in that way, respectfully, because I think mothering can be a community experience. It doesn't have to be so isolated.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So tell me about, so were you born in the UK?
Yeah.
You were born in the UK. You are I guess, second generation?
Or first generation.
Or first generation, technically, because your mother...
My mum came to the UK when she was very young. She came to the UK when she was around 7. But for those who don't know, there's a period in British history called the Windrush generation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where the generations who were let's go back to slavery. We start from there. Obviously, our history goes way back, but we just put a pin in that part. The Africans were brought to the Caribbean, and in the Caribbean, then the Second World War happened. Britain got damaged heavily, and then they opened up the immigration system to the Commonwealth to come back and build up the country. So they opened it up to the Caribbean. And from about the 50s, 60s, 70s, many migrated from the Caribbean to Britain. So that's how currently, in this modern era, there are a lot of Caribbean people in Britain because of that process. And that's called the Windrush generation. So my mother's part of that Windrush generation.
From Jamaica?
From St. Lucia.
From St. Lucia,
Yeah.
okay.
My dad now, similar generation, a bit older than my mum. He was actually born in Britain, but raised in Jamaica.
Okay.
So left as a young child. His dad's Jamaican. Took him and his family back to Jamaica. And my dad was raised in Jamaica. And then was raised in the States as well.
You know what's funny? This is a total sidebar.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild because you look like a Jacki that I know that helped raise me. Like she was one of my babysitters growing up.
Oh, yeah?
And she's from St. Lucia. She's
Really?
the only person that I really know from St. Lucia. And her name is Jacki.
Now you know another one who's got
now
a connection to St.
Yeah,
Lucia.
yeah, that's funny. Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't know about that piece of history. I mean, when I do think of Black people generally, when I think of the UK, I know that there are a lot of Caribbean people there, but I didn't know like the history behind it. When did that begin and all of that? Okay, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in Britain now, if you were part of the Black community, part of the Caribbean community, you'd be very familiar with the Windrush generation. They're that generation that I suppose people refer to. They're that baby boomer age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had different experiences from different parents, but motherhood specifically. My mother is she's British, but she's St. Lucian.
Yeah.
That's where she's from.
That's where she's from.
Yeah. And as a child, she sent me there as a holiday to familiarize myself with what the culture is like.
Yeah.
And it has informed me in a way where I'm British myself, but I'm very connected to Caribbean culture.
Yeah. Well, tell me about that, because I want to segue into, because we're in Tanzania right now, in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. What made you, because you came here in, I guess at this point, you've been here about 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
Wow, and has that gone by fast?
Yes and no. Like the time, it has felt like 4 years because I myself have changed and developed.
Yes.
I've seen my child go from being shorter than me to now I'm looking up at him. So there's a timeline that I can pinpoint. Yeah, it's gone short and fast in something.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You know what? Interesting when you say that too, because like when I had my kids, people were like, you know, be careful because you know you'll look up and it's gone. It's fleeting. It goes by fast.
Yeah.
But to me, I felt like it hasn't gone by really fast, and I mean that in a good way. But I feel like I've been able to be very present, and it's actually gone like slow.
point.
But then it does feel like a long period of time because I feel like I've gone through, like, I don't know, the caterpillar kind of thing and to butterfly. I guess I'm a butterfly now, maybe not yet. But I've gone through many stages of Ashley in the last 5 years from becoming a mother. Yeah, there's probably been like 8 Ashleys through those 5 years of just things I've gone through, things I've been through. So I get what you're saying about
I agree.
the long and the short. I do understand that.
I look back at pictures and I'm like, I remember that hairstyle.
Yeah,
I remember I used to like that dress.
Yeah.
I don't wear that now.
Yeah. Or you don't even know where it is anymore. Like, what happened to that thing? I have so many things like that. I'm like, what happened to that? Oh yeah, I used to wear that. So I get that. What brought you here? Because that was 2020 or was it 2021?
Yeah.
What made you, had you been to Africa before?
I had.
Okay.
So I had been to Africa about many years before as a young woman in my early 20s. I visited Ghana.
Okay.
And left the country not the same person. It felt like a spiritual awakening. I just wasn't the same Jacki that got on the plane, that got off the plane, but for the better. And I had such an amazing experience that I could never put into words to the people that I came back to the UK about. Yeah. And I would drop in little gems about Afrocentric ideas, and I just kind of got the impression that I think they just think I'm a little bit OTT with it, maybe. Perhaps I'm just the one Afrocentric type of person in my circle, and I was cool with that. So I did have a taste of Africa before, and then I visited Nigeria many years after that, and it was very different to Ghana. And I thought, wow, I thought I knew. I don't know anything. So I had some ideas of what Africa was like, And but coming to Tanzania, it reminded me a lot of the Caribbean. Actually, has a similar look. This part of Tanzania, obviously, there's different parts, but this part, Dar es Salaam, it's very tropical beaches, the foliage, the flowers. It has a familiar look to it.
Yeah. Even
So,
some of the food actually reminds
food,
me a lot of
yeah.
Caribbean culture food.
Yeah. And so the reason, sorry, back to the question, was the reason why.
Yeah.
Lockdown, I'd say, is many things incrementally built up to being the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
But in an umbrella, I'd say lockdown, by that stage, I'd had enough of it.
Yeah.
I, at first, liked it. I thought, oh my God, this is like all my Christmases come together at once. Like time off work, time at home, just chilling. I can wear pajamas all day and a hair bonnet. This is fantastic. But a little while into it, it didn't kind of sit right with me. I felt impinged upon. And I already had an idea prior to that about wanting to try different countries, wanting to try Africa.
Yeah.
So I already had that idea. So I just kind of built on it. And I felt the needs for my son. He needs an outdoor childhood, something that's a little bit more freeing and less restricted by can't go out because the weather's bad.
Yeah.
Can't go out because there's something going on right now where we can't go out. Can't go out because we can't afford it. Can't go out. I needed that gone.
Yeah.
So I could have freedom and he could have freedom. And I was kind of looking at it from a higher perspective. Not that he was informing it, but from my experience of being a child myself, thinking, what did I need at that time? If this were me, what would I have wanted my mum to do for me? If I could see it from a higher perspective, would I wanted my mum? I was thinking in my son's head, if that makes sense. In hindsight, so I was doing a lot of time jumping in my head, forward and back. If I didn't move and I stayed, and my mum had me stay, what would I be missing out on? And could my mum do something about that to make it different? If that makes sense?
Which is a luxury, I think. I think a couple things. I think it's one, a luxury to even, I guess that was the blessing of the pandemic. Maybe it gave you the time to even be able to think and process that way.
Yeah.
But then I also think it was the exposure that you had. I feel like had you not already maybe seen some of these other places or gone other places, especially Africa, maybe you would have had maybe a stigma towards like.
I would have.
Yeah.
I say to people, no shade to, I don't know if I can say like charities out there. So for example, like Comic Relief. For example, in my childhood, Comic Relief was plighted with African children with swollen bellies, flies in their face. And I'm not saying that has not happened on this continent, but that's the images that was pushed year in, year out from my childhood. So to come and see that actually there's so much more going on than that, I've not actually seen that.
And that was globally, because I mean, me in America, also a child growing up in the 80s, that was my lens of Africa.
Yeah.
That they're starving, you know, and not just one country, like the whole
Africa.
Whole of it. The whole Africa
top to bottom.
is starving. You know, they're just in this destitute place, and you know, there's flies everywhere. There's only dirt, and you know, all of those things. So very similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
That propaganda is, you know.
Yeah, it was pretty strong.
It is pretty strong. Yeah.
So you're right. I was exposed to it, and I always like to think of it like this: at that time, everything happens at the right time, right? How I think of divine timing. I would describe it that I looked at my confidence as a bank account. I was in credit. I had a lot of it at the time, and I still do, but at the time, things were lining up for me where I could. My child was homeschooled. I had a profession that allowed me to be able to work online. And I decided I'm going to make a decision on my own about my own life journey, being responsible for my life, my son's life as well. I'm going to make a decision based on the amount of confidence that I have in myself and in working. And if it's like a bank account, I'm not in the deficit. I've actually got it's balanced, and there's a little bit in the savings account.
I like that visual.
I'm going to take some, and I'm going to go
visual.
for it.
I love that, but I feel like only a counselor would be able to like figure that out in that way, of course. Did you get, because is your mom still living?
Yes.
She's alive, and is she in the UK?
She is, yeah.
What was the response to, hey mom, I'm moving to Africa and with your grandson?
Yeah. My mum's a very calm person by nature. She's a midwife, so she's used to handling situations. Yeah. So she's a very calm person. She took it very calmly, but I knew from her face, she was like, "Are you crazy?" But she's a very supportive person. So she was supportive. She asked a lot of questions: when, what, where, why, and how. And I had answers for each of all. And once I was there, maybe within the first year, I'd say I invited her over, so she got to see for herself. So, and we always kept in touch. So I think she was worried. I think all my family probably thought I was worried. They were worried to some extent, thinking, but then they know me, and I'm that kind of person that would do something like that.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever the situations were around, whether it was lockdown or not. Even if that hadn't happened, I probably would have found myself traveling or doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was already kind of seen as someone of outside the box person when I homeschooled.
Yeah.
I was already an outside the box person. I used to be a hairdresser. I gave it up to become a counsellor. Why'd you do that? Like I've already done things.
So
that
this
people...
wasn't so shocking. This was sort of on brand for Jackie. This was
exactly
okay.
Part of my character.
Part of your character. Yeah. It's like, okay, this is different, but this is on brand as well for Jackie.
Yeah.
Now, would you say Caribbean people have? I know you can't generalize all, the Caribbean because there are many different islands. But I know, kind of generically speaking, kind of what a lot of Americans, Black Americans, think of Africa from certain generations. It's different generationally.
Yeah.
For your mom, had she been to Africa before? Did she have, what were kind of her thoughts?
That's a really good point, actually, because I'm what would be termed as British Caribbean. A person who's Caribbean, born and raised, would look at me and think, she's not Caribbean, she's British. But us in Britain look at ourselves as British Caribbean, for having had the influence over our upbringing. So the influence over the upbringing has an interesting point. Is the generation above us and above that didn't see Africa favorably, just didn't. And I think it's down to whatever they were shown or told or not told or left to assume, So when I refer back to the Windrush generation, if you ever get to see old documentaries of that era, they were referring to Britain as the motherland. It's commonly said, it's commonly documented. To them, a colony of Britain was, say, the Caribbean, and the motherland was Britain. So when they got invited, we're going to the motherland, as if that's the umbrella of their success. It wasn't to do with your melanation, your heritage culturally, the history. It's the generations after that I would say pushed for that a little bit more. And I think movements like the Rastafarian movement, music, those kind of influences like that.
Definitely Bob Marley, the call back to Africa.
Had more of a kind of a link that the generations after kind of like thought, I like the sound of that. I'm more interested in that. So I'd say someone like of my generation is more inclined to do what we've done.
Yeah, for sure. Very similarly, I feel, and I don't know, you probably know more of the history behind that, but I'm just thinking common sense wise, the closer you are or the less removed you are generationally from slavery, and that slave trade is really where that, like, I don't want to be associated with Africa, or I see Africa through a negative lens, where I think we have had the liberty and the luxury to be a little bit more removed from that, from being enslaved, that we have the freedom of thought now, the freedom of movement to be free and like say, this history book, this isn't correct.
It's not adding up.
It's not adding up. Yeah.
And we've got knowledge at our hands so much more easily than previous generations.
Very much more accessible.
So these days, I don't see there's any excuse why you can't go and do a little bit digging and find out something for yourself. Whereas before, the excuse could have been you didn't know, you were ignorant, there was no access to it, it wasn't shared, it was kept.
Which made you more afraid, of course, because no access to it.
Very true.
Yeah. So when you came here, your son was how old at the time? 10.
Yeah.
What, was that first year like? And I mean, not so much of I know you had been to Africa before, but But what did you, or if you can remember, some of the things in your first year that shifted about your mothering and the way that you mother?
I realized that sometimes I don't have the answers and I don't know where I'm going to get the answers from, and I need to be strong in some sort of spiritual confidence that it's all going to work out.
Okay.
And I realized how I just found I hope in years to come my son could look back and say, yeah, Mum, you did a good job. But I found myself having to be very resourceful in how to handle a child who just didn't want to be here. Because he didn't want to be here at first.
Because 10, was that 4th grade? What grade is that?
I'm not sure how they do it in America, but in the UK system, he was in year 6.
Okay, yeah, it's a little bit different, yeah.
It was the last year of what we call primary school.
Okay, yeah. Then, but also homeschoolers, I always feel they're a bit more advanced.
Different, yeah.
So, yeah.
And he was homeschooled for a few years prior to that. He had been in a regular school, but he was homeschooled for about 2 years prior to that. And he was okay with coming and traveling, but then he didn't like the idea of staying and not being back to family and things like that.
Yeah, because he was already familiar with family, friends, I'm sure.
Very familiar with friends, family. And so that was challenging. I found I needed to be a lot more patient with myself, understanding and brave. I had to be brave. Say something, I needed some shopping and I had to go to the market to get it. And I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to have to figure it out. And I don't speak the language, but I'm going to have to figure this out. I don't know the money, but I'm going to have to figure this out. And I need to do it quick. So like, it was character building for me. I just had to, I hit the ground running type of a thing. And, but like I said, that confidence that I had, I was dipping into savings account of my confidence. I wasn't lacking in that. I felt I could, so I did. And I wanted to, there's a term in parental coaching called modeling the model. So I was modeling what I would want my son to be able to do.
Interesting.
Yeah, if I panicked and freaked out, then I'm only gonna be showing him panic and freak out. If I can show like there's a way through it, let's think positive, we'll figure it out, then he can mirror that from me.
Yeah. So, and I feel like too, planting that seed, you know, because a lot of times like we're just living life, especially with mothers, we're going fast and whatever, and you don't even realize what your child is learning really by example.
Very much
you
so.
know, and they're soaking it in and taking it in. How do you feel like he's changed in the 4 years you've been here? So he went from not wanting to be here, right?
To now I think he's well adjusted in terms of being open to what else is outside of the UK. And I think he's mellowed a lot. He's wiser. He gives me sound counsel on things that I'm like, wow, that's so clever of you to think like that. And it's from perspectives that he's gained from being outside of, I don't like, you know the term like first world problems? Like if you just use that terminology, he understands what a first world problem is versus a non-first world problem, and to put it into perspective. So I think that's helped him mature and be appreciative of things. And he has quite a humble nature to him anyway.
Do you feel like, because I'm thinking about when you said confidence, you know, he went from, I mean, in the UK, because I haven't been in the UK before, but I assume it's more predominantly white, right, than it is, you know, of the many colors that live there. Do you feel like his confidence, or you've seen a shift in his confidence at all? And how do you feel like he may, of course you don't know for sure until you go back and you return to the UK, that he may see himself as a black boy now that he's been a black boy living on the continent?
Yeah, he's got more awareness of being black now when we've gone back to the UK. Whereas it wasn't something he was saying as an 8, 9, 10-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now he has an understanding, but some of that I think might be social media influence.
As well.
He's watching what other teens would typically watch. But what I have enjoyed is that he's had the chance to have an experience of just kind of blending in a little
being
bit.
a part of the majority.
Yeah,
He's
just
the
blending
majority.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite nice. For the moments that they don't, in Tanzania, they don't know where you're from, and you've blended in.
You're
Something
not
about
speaking.
there's something about those few moments that's really quite nice. And in the UK, it's fine. Like as in, when I say it's fine, where we are in London, it's very mixed, it's very diverse. Mostly, my experience has been fine. But every now and then, when you do come up against an issue around race or discrimination, it's unpleasant, and I think it's useful to be able to call it out for what it is and spot it, rather than just pretend that didn't happen. No, it did, and know what it is, so you can put it in its place and move on and work with what you've got to work with. So I think he's more savvy with understanding that a little bit more in his own youthful way. There's a lot more to learn, but.
And it's interesting. I mean, you probably won't know even a lot of this stuff until he's full grown.
Right.
That he's like, oh, Mom, that experience, this, and who knows? He may want to return, to an African country, or, it may shape him in the way he decides to live his life. I feel like for me personally, when I went to, it was Thailand. When I visited Thailand, I always say that was such a, like a spiritual awakening for me, and really a catalyst moment in my own life, where I realized that was the first time I ever been anywhere that I wasn't very conscious of being Ashley, who is a Black woman. I just was Ashley. Like I wasn't, and even though you say, okay, well, Thailand, there's, they're Asian people, but of a darker hue. But I was just walking in stores as, as Ashley. I wasn't just, it's just this thing. I call it the monster that sits on your back when you're living in America as a Black person. It's like second nature because you're just so used to it, and it's been passed down from generation to generation that you just are always very, very aware that you're Black, you're Black, you're Black. I'm walking into the store, even something as small as like, oh, I just went to another store before I came to this store, but I have already something in my bag, but they may think that I stole it, or okay, now I'm going in my bag. Like those kind of things, just all the things that you just think about. I just, during the short time I was there, I didn't feel that, and that kind of set the tone where I was like, man, I actually could just go somewhere else in the world and like deal with another layer of problems, but at least release
different
this
flavor.
Different flavor. Yeah, exactly. I won't have to deal with these. And I feel like that went into my bucket a little bit, or that was planted, that seed was planted. So when I did become a mother, and my husband and I were discussing, see, he had already been to Africa. He had been to South Africa before. But that seed was planted in both of us, have been outside of America, that we were like, yeah, maybe we could do something else and raise a child elsewhere. The reason why I told you that whole story is because around 2020, because that's when I had my son. So I had my son in the height of the pandemic, like April 2020.
Yeah, just as it hit.
Yes, it was really bad. Like people felt like you opened the window, you were going to catch it. If the wind blew too hard, you were going to catch it.
Wow.
It was.
That's an experience.
It was
something that you're going to forget.
I will never ever forget it. And not only that, he was born at that time, but then he was in the NICU. So and then because of the pandemic, I had to go to the NICU alone. Like my husband wasn't allowed to go because it was that, like, oh, not too many people, quarantine. It was a lot. It spun me into postpartum depression. So it was like, I don't know, and you probably could give me the term for it, but it was like I was in survival mode. So I was, okay, enough to get my broken body up every day to go to the NICU and breastfeed and do the things and check on him and all that. And he was in there for about 3 weeks, which felt like 3 years to a new mother in the pandemic. But when he came home, because I was so excited, oh my gosh, I can't wait. Can I bring him home? Can I bring him home? But then when I brought him home, postpartum depression hit. It was like that come down of everything. And no one could be around. And it was just, my husband and I. It was a lot. It was a really, really challenging time. Challenging, but I did have enough self-awareness at that time to know I don't think I can be the mother I want to be in this space. in America.
And that's a very powerful piece of awareness.
Yes.
Yeah.
I knew, and so I want to talk a bit about self-care because a lot of times, especially like on social media, I mean, and self-care, like I feel like over the last few years has been like a buzz topic. Self-care.
Yeah.
And it's usually shaped and kind of framed around a woman's perspective of self-care and mothering. But you see a lot of these like Pinterest boards of self-care, and it's like someone getting their nails done or getting a bubble bath. And for a lot of people that may be their thing.
Yeah.
For me, I realized that that's not, I don't consider that self-care for me. So like I like the result of getting my nails done. But I actually hate the process of getting my nails done.
Oh, yeah, 2 hours in the shop.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it's been like this point of contention between my husband and I, because he thinks like, oh yeah, you're going to pamper yourself and get your nails done. I actually hate it because it gives me so much anxiety, especially if it's a new nail tech. I'm like, are they going to cut me? Are they going to do
my gosh, yeah. Isn't it hard to find somebody who's gentle with that file?
Oh my goodness. It's nerve-wracking. But the reason I don't stop, Jackie, is because I like the result of having my nails done. Very similar to you, I grew up around a community of a lot of women. And one of my aunts, my great aunts, she like always admired the way her nails were always done, even the shape of her nails. Like I wear my nails in the shape that she wore her nails. And I was like, when I grow up, I'm gonna have nails like my auntie Evelyn. And to this day, like it's like that. So I like the outcome of getting my, my locks done or my nails, but I don't like the process.
Yeah.
What self-care for me, what I have found for me personally, is the more self-aware I am, the more I feel like that's my self-care. And some of those things are like my boundaries.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
And being aware of like, that's not going to work for me. I can't do that. And so at that time in 2020, I was self-aware. Like I said, I was like out of my mind, like with postpartum depression. And just because I'm mentioning, I want to also say this too. I guess my like lens of what postpartum depression was, to be honest, I thought only white women had postpartum depression, because Black women, at least in the States, they're talking about it more now, but I didn't grow up with like people talking about this. Is like a shameful thing or a stigma behind it. So I thought postpartum depression was like you want to hurt your child or you don't want the child or anything like that. So I wasn't aware of any of that. So I had postpartum depression, but not even knowing that I had it. The best way I could describe my experience of it, it just felt like the lights were off. Like it was just dark all the time, like very dim. And then one day it was like the lights came back on, and then I realized, oh my God, I've been in the dark for like 8 months.
Yeah.
Now, that's how it felt. But just enough in that time frame, I was able to say, I guess around the time, I came up, I was pretty much out of it. I was like, I don't think I can be the type of mother I want to be in this environment, because I'm going to be very anxious about at this time too, the death of George Floyd had happened. Civil unrest was wild in America at this time. And I was like, I just don't want to deal with this. Like, I have an idea that being a mother is going to be quite challenging. Like you, I was raised by a single mom. So I had an idea that just being a mother in general is a bit of a challenge. But I was like, on top of that, the racism and all that, I want, if I can eliminate some of the things. So that was my self-care, I'm saying. Tell me how self-care is like, really like the centerpiece, and why it's so important for a mother to be aware of what their self-care routine is or what they need in order for them to be able to mother in a healthy way.
Yeah, I think your story is really powerful, because I think postnatal depression isn't well understood. Now there's a lot of other things around mental health that are coming to the surface. People are talking about it. But postnatal depression, especially in the Black community, I never heard it spoke about, ever. But I think there's a stereotype for Black women that you're just supposed to be this strong wise sage of Mother Earth. You're just supposed to know and get on with it. Like
baby making machine.
Like,
you just
there you go, the child.
Yeah.
I've got this, and I fry chicken on the side. It's nothing. It's like, it doesn't work that way.
No, not at all. But that was my perception of it as well. Yeah,
no, it doesn't work that way.
No.
And I think probably historically, maybe as a group of women, we weren't allowed to show weakness at all. And if you think historically where babies were taken and shipped off, it would have been a complete risk to look like you weren't interested in that child.
Yes.
It wouldn't have been safe at all. So, but postnatal depression as well has the hormonal element to it. As you are postpartum, your body is rebalancing itself out hormonally, and that will affect how your chemicals in your brain are. So it is going to cause, it may cause issues. At the time, that era was a very difficult era as well. And self-care to me, I look at trying Africa and Tanzania specifically and how safe it's kind of felt. There's pros and cons to this place, but there's something about it that was very cocooning and safe and grounding. And to me, that was like the self-care on a magnitude type level, on a macro level. There's a term that I looked up the other day called social prescribing.
Social
Prescribing. So it's where it can be done in like a non-clinical way if somebody has depression, and actually what's recommended for them is to go join a sewing group rather than meds, you know? Because actually socializing and being creative might help their depression.
I really love that. Can you say that again? So social
prescribing. Yeah.
Now, does that work in the reverse? Like, you don't need to be around these group of people?
Right, well, that's how I'm working it. I saw the term last week and I thought, okay, I think I've been kind of reverse engineering that for the past how many years. This environment I was in was stressing me out. And it was affecting my, like you said, I didn't think I could be the mother I wanted to be either. I had a sense of that. I remember doing one of the things that led me to want to take my son out of school. I was doing the school run. I remember walking to the top of the hill and then it hit me. I hate this school run. I hate the weather. I see the same people. I don't hate them, but I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. It's got to be another way around. So I didn't shut that side of my thinking down. I investigated it. And it led me to more investigations, more self-awareness, more things, and just more. There's more out there than the confines of whatever it is you think you are currently in now. Even as we sit here on this couch and speak, there's more out there than what we think we know here. So just having an open mind of what parenting could be, it encouraged me to pack up and try something different somewhere else, because I felt my mental health was going to suffer.
Yeah. And you know, that's like a lot of the things where you were saying, like investigating that and saying, yeah, no, let me tap into that a little bit more and figure out what that is. Okay. And then, you know, have an action plan beyond that. I don't think that we're unique at all with those thoughts, but we are unique on the action.
Yes,
behind
the action.
It.
Yes.
Why do you feel, or what have you experienced enough, like in your practice? Obviously, you've spoken with many different mothers before, or encountered Black mothers. What gets in the way of that thought and then afterwards the action? What's the barrier between taking the action you feel like for many Black mothers?
Maybe what other people might think. Maybe some sort of peer pressure that's kind of hard to put your finger on. But what will somebody think? And I can't say for all, but historically, and I've mentioned it before, we come from a lot of trauma, generational trauma, that has never, I think maybe we're broaching on opening up that box to heal it. Before, I'd have said it was just suppressed and pretended like it wasn't even there, really. But we have,
because it's seen as a weakness.
Yes.
Also. Yeah.
Well, I think now is the landscape to talk about mental health and trauma. And I always had this theory. I don't know if you ever heard of epigenetics. Epigenetics is a science study where they can, you know, somebody might be predisposed to diabetes, for example, but it's only if they're in this environment and that environment and that environment, and then it gets passed down multiple generations. They know enough about that now. And they've done a research project where they have shown that, like, I think somewhere in Northern Europe or Scandinavian countries, there was a famine, and then the people that were born of the mothers of that famine, how they have responded to their own weight and their health in relation to a famine that happened a generation before them. So they've got that on research, but yet no one talks about the research of what it does to the Black community, where generations were put under severe subjugation, and then the generations of us now, how that plays out epigenetically. My ideas are around, my thinking is that actually it has an impact on how generational trauma has affected us. So Black mothers have not had the space to have these kind of conversations publicly, where another black mother can hear it and perhaps be positively influenced. And there's no need to feel shame about getting something wrong, not feeling your best, not having a particularly strong day. You know, I think, and it affects how we parent our children, how we parent our boys, for example, how we parent our females, and how healthy relationships, how those are things that I think would be good to focus on, actually, because some of us have come from witnessing unhealthy relationships,
Yeah.
not enough healthy relationships.
Not enough healthy ones,
Yeah.
for sure. I feel like it's interesting when you talk about like the trauma. I feel like generationally, like even like, you know, full transparency, when I decided to move here, and really for my husband too, but just for the sake of this, talk about me, there was definitely a lot of like pushback and, well, why would you do that? You know, why would you move to Africa? That I know, had I said I was opposed, like, you know, I'm moving to Paris, that I don't think I would have gotten the same type of questions and, you know, like, But I do think generationally, when we talk about like the trauma passed down, what was beaten into them, like really like, because my mom is a baby boomer, so that was the first generation to integrate, you know, where integration happened, where they were the first to go to school with white people and work with white people and stuff. I think that plays a lot into the way they see the world, and also like still that stigma with Africa, not all, but a lot of them have. And really wanting to be really white adjacent in a lot of ways, and not knowing it. If you say that would be really triggering. They'd be like, "What? You're saying I want to be a white adjacent?" But I think it's just this thing that they don't realize. But if since the time that you were a small child, if it was looked at, oh, okay, now you can go to school with the white people and you can do this, that does shape you in a way of how you live your life. And I feel like, so yeah, there was just a lot of kickback, you know, from that generation when I decided to move here. But I had enough self-awareness for myself to say, okay, let me weigh on the scale. The people bondage of how you feel about it versus my mental health. And it was like, oh yeah, my mental health, like I can't. I just know that I need to raise my boys, my black boys, in a society where I'm not going to always just be on edge. I mean, even going to like the playground, with my first son, I hadn't had my second one yet. I was on edge. I was just on edge, just like, you know, like I'd be afraid of like my son, like there'd be times like my son walking towards like a little blonde white girl, or like, you know how kids are, they take things out of someone's hand, or, you know, they're just whatever, they're children. And I'd be like, nope. You know, it was just always that, just being on edge. And who knows, sometimes the white people, they were very nice. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you get those that you got that energy and you feel, and I was just like, this is too much. I'm gonna make him anxious because I'm anxious. So I think I should just move where, you know, his childhood can be free. You talked about before, like off camera, like, you know, the fact that your son could play outside and like, you know,
there's
just
freedom.
There's just this freedom that, for me, for when my kids are being kids here or acting out, I don't feel like people are looking at, oh, that little black boy is acting out in the store. It's just whatever, oh, you know, he's just a child doing whatever.
Yeah, I don't see people calling the police on anyone. And and another thing I kind of noticed as well, I don't know if this has just been my personal experience or what I've seen. I noticed the other day, I don't see blood on the ground here. And I noticed when I'm in London, even if it's nothing violent, it's not uncommon to see a splatter of blood here, there, a sign for a fatal stabbing, please contact this number. Incident happened, please contact. I don't see that. Whereas here, maybe it does happen, but I don't see bloodshed as often. I don't step over things that looks like it left somebody's body as often. I don't. So all these things are quite nuanced and in the background, but enough to influence my behaviour as a mother. I was noticing I get anxious at things like that as well. And your children are so attuned to their mothers.
Yes.
The slightest change in your face, your tone of voice, kids will pick it up. They're going to know. And how nice is it for your child to see mum freer than under another circumstance?
Which is what I wanted to ask you, actually. You went right into it. They say, I don't know if it's specialists or psychologists, but I've seen over and over, it said that mothers are the ones that set the emotional tone for the household.
Yeah, I'd imagine that would be the case, because there's a theory called rupture and repair, which is about mothering a child, and it's to do with the basis of around when you're breastfeeding a child, even though you're not breastfeeding a child, but the connection that you have with a child. The rupture is when you remove the child from the breast. The rupture is when you fall out with your child, you tell them off, you turn up late for their dance recital, they're upset with you. Something's ruptured the relationship, something's caused a rift. And it's never really always, sometimes that rupture can be quite significant, but the thing that is the most powerful thing is the ability to repair the relationship, the coming back together, the smoothing it over, the finding out if they're okay, the apology, that kind of stuff is so powerful, and it helps with emotional regulation. So it starts from the most basic level of a mother and a mother feeding the child's fed, and then the child's pulled away from the breast. There's a rupture, but then the child comes back again, that's repaired. So that is the first emotional attachment that a child's gonna know.
Rupture
and repair.
And repair.
Yeah. And it plays out throughout adulthood. If you think of conflicting relationships you might have had with somebody, you can have somebody who, a lot of ish might go down between you and that person. It can be a very tumultuous relationship, but yet there's an ability to come back. That can be quite strong.
Yeah.
And that can be the thing that can make a relationship healthy, providing that coming back is a healthy, non-toxic, like misguided loyalty, not a misguided loyalty coming back, like a healthy coming back. Then that is something that really builds emotional regulation in us as humans.
Wow, yeah. It's triggering, actually, you even talking about this, because I was thinking about something that just happened last night with me and my youngest, who's 2, going on like 72. He's like...
He's been here before.
He's been here before for sure, right? And sometimes I forget that he's 2, because I can have a conversation with Shante, like, him and I can sit here like you and I, drinking, our tea or something and talking. He's like a little old man, so sometimes I can forget, that he's 2 and not 5 or whatever. He'll be 3 soon. But anyway, last night I was really tired and I had a lot of preparing to do for today and whatever else. And he was up way past his bedtime because I wasn't here for the normal hour of his bedtime. So he was really pushing the boundaries with this, right? He's talking, and anyway, I have a routine where I lay down with him first, and he usually falls asleep within 5 minutes, and then I can leave. But I peeked out the window because I heard the Maasai out the window, making, you guys that don't know Maasai, a lot of us use Maasai warriors for security and stuff here. So our Maasai was outside, and I heard noise, and I was just peeking out to see if it was him or whatever. And then my son was like, "Oh, I'm gonna look out the window." And then I was like, "Nope, we're not doing that." And I took him and I put him down like this. But it was, it's boys, they're rough, So it was kind of like a slam down. But he I didn't yell or anything. I was like, "Nope, Shante, we're not doing that." And I put him down. And then I look at his face. He was he was crying silently. Ooh. And oh my gosh, Jackie, I felt like a monster of a person. I felt horrible. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, Shante." It's like, "Are you hurt?" He wasn't physically hurt. It was just, I guess, my abruptness or it hurt his feelings.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I was like, "I am so sorry. Mommy needs to be a lot more patient."
That's a whole story of rupture and repair. Did you see what?
Yes. And I but I took accountability because I was like, I need to let him know, I was wrong, And I was like, I need to be a little bit more patient. I was like, "Are you okay?" He was like, first he said, "I'm not okay."
Oh,
he's
so
like, yeah.
Bless him.
"I'm not okay." I was like, "I am so sorry." I was like, "I will be more careful next time." And he was like, "Okay, Mama." And he kissed me and but I still felt bad, but he had recovered, but I had felt bad, but I needed to let him know. And I try to be very conscious of that with my kids too. I am so sorry. Oh my gosh,
Yeah, apologies are an important part of parenting.
Yes.
But if we go back to generational trauma, imagine that rupture, move your child, and nothing
Oh, generationally?
Just get on with whatever needs to be and tell them to go to bed now or they're going to feel why they're not.
Listen, I come from that generation. It was a very popular thing during my time. You better stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry for.
Yeah, right, yes, right. So imagine that now. That's a rupture with an extra bit of sauce on top of the rupture and there's no repair. No. The repair might come back years later when you're in therapy. You're trying to repair it with an imaginary... Imagine they're on the chair. What would you want to say to them? They're not here. But that's how it kind of works.
And I even think about that now. Like, what does that even mean? I was already crying. What do you mean? Or I'll give you something to cry for. Oh, even worse. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But for sure. Yeah. There was no repair.
Yeah. In I can't remember the exact term. I think it's called the double positive in behavioural therapy. When you are disciplining a child might be crying and you smack them and they stop crying. You have a positive outcome because you wanted the child to stop crying, so you smacked them. And you got you got your outcome. It's called a double positive. You wanted something to happen and you found a solution, you've done it. But then in the long term, it's building up an issue in the long term.
Yeah.
So the work would be to find alternatives to that. Like what you done, you leaned in, you acknowledged it, you had a conversation, you spoke about it, you apologized, that's the repair.
I feel like for me, like when we were talking about the apologizing, the only reason I'm even able to apologize is because I feel it first. I allow myself to feel bad. Like it doesn't feel good. Like when I did it yesterday, like when I told you and I like put him down, I felt like really bad and really like, oh my gosh, why are you such in a rush? But I think for that generation probably prior and before and for it, they didn't, maybe more pride was involved and they couldn't take the time to like, oh, I'm gonna feel bad about what I did. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna be quiet. Then you shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. You know, that kind of thing.
I get that.
Yeah. So, but it's not easy. I'm certainly not a perfect mom by any means. I don't even know if one exists. But yeah, I try to apologize. And even like though they're almost 3 and 5, I try to let them see that at an early age. Acknowledging wrong so that they'll know as well how to do it later in their own life.
And that is modeling the model. It goes across everything. If you want a child to understand how to apologize in the future, you're going to have to be the person that they learn it from. Because otherwise they're going to learn it from another person's style of apology and it might not be
genuine.
Great. It might not, there's a lot of fake apologies out there. So that's what I think that's one of the things that I look back at. I mean, I look back at my parenting. People who have children much older than my 14-year-old will be like, no, you're new to this. So I'm not saying I look back at it like, I've been done it. No, I'm still in the middle of it. But apologizing has been something that has been quite powerful for me. Because, and I think it's helped my relationship with my child significantly because he's able to apologize when he does things wrong. And it's not always immediate when apologies come. Sometimes there is a bit of ego between both of me here, a bit of ego and I'm like, oh no, I ain't going to say sorry. I will be petty. Like it can get like that.
For sure, I can be very petty.
It can get like that. And to me, it's about being authentic, not a fake version of what I think a mum should be. I'm just authentic and your child should be, could, I don't know, like there's all these different things that can get in the way. But isn't it great if your child is the one person who knows you at your core?
At your core.
Yeah. The good and the bad.
It's funny when you were talking about apologizing and you said, you modeling that for him, then he knows to apologize. It made me think about like how we're shaping our boys to be men in their own relationships with women.
Right.
It's funny because like when I first had my first son, someone asked me, she was like, how are you going to prevent from being one of those toxic mothers, with their sons? Because people are always talking about how like those mothers are like with their mother-in-laws, for example, how mothers think their sons are like the bee's knees. And I think Michelle Obama says like, their women are raising their daughters, but mothering their sons or something similar to that. How do you feel like that plays into like how you raise your son, where you like stay from being, I guess what they say, a toxic mom where, everything he does is right, or you're gonna, raise him maybe not to have strong relationships with the opposite sex?
I think my framework comes from wanting to prevent a narcissist. I know it sounds so extreme.
Well, you are a counselor.
Yeah, so that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, okay, what's the worst case scenario?
Oh, gosh,
I don't, and it's impossible to have a child who's perfect and never gets anything wrong. You're setting them up for some sort of failure in life.
Yeah.
It's mistakes that help shape a person so they learn from those mistakes and do better next time. Perfection isn't the aim in parenting generally anyway. You need to be good enough. You don't actually need to be perfect. And as a person, you need to be good enough. You don't need to be perfect. So what I remember in a lesson I taught my son was how to spot somebody that's potentially sadistic. And this is how you can catch a bully. So you don't go into pandering to a bully as you go to school and things. And he was at a children's Saturday school. In the UK, they have this thing called a Saturday school where kids can go on Saturdays, quite specific to the black community. And I picked him up, but the teacher said, we've had to tell him off. He used rude language to somebody and we had to tell him off. And my initial thought was, I'd like to hear from my son's point of view first, actually, because he might have done that, but I wonder what led to it. So I asked him, and he described a situation where some girls were throwing beanbags at him, and he didn't like it. He asked them to stop, and they continued. And he got more and more frustrated. And the more frustrated he got, the more they found it funnier, the more they done it, and they didn't let up. In fact, they ramped it up, the more frustrated he became. So what he done is he snapped at them and put them in their place. And that's where he got in trouble, because that's when the teacher noticed him now, which can be very typical for a child can get nabbed, get told off, but actually there was a lead up to it, and it wasn't necessarily them that done it. Now, I'm not saying my son was perfect. He got told off by me for using that language and addressing people that way. But what I did give him was an additional tool. Is actually what you could do is when you notice somebody's provoking you, and you've asked them to stop, and they don't, and they continue, that there is an indicator that that person possibly, not to pathologize children, but possibly they get a kick out of seeing you distressed. And that's how bullies operate. So at that point, when you've clocked that, remove yourself. And I'm glad you put them in their place. Perhaps the language was a little bit too harsh, that's why you got in trouble. But I'm glad that you asserted yourself. But what the takeaway from that incident is that noticing when somebody's getting a kick out of your discomfort and remove yourself from that person. And so things like that have to apply across the board. If your child's the person giving discomfort to another person, then the same applies. Right. So it's about instilling some level of self-awareness about what's going on in the room, not just your child being about themselves. And that should be playing out into relationships as they get older. Are they being fair and treating people the way that they want to be treated? Are they treating the females in their life the way they want to be treated?
Or they would want to see someone treat you, their mom.
Exactly.
Know? It's interesting. You took me on a segue actually about narcissism that I did want to ask, because it's something that's talked about a lot lately too. But narcissism it's a sickness that has to be treated, right? A lot of times the way it's framed is that it's something that the person can just change. Like, they're a narcissist. Or where does narcissism come from? Like, I've heard that people say it's a what am I trying to say? It really comes from depression or some type of trauma that happens.
Yeah, my understanding of it is I'm not diagnosing or clinicalizing things. This is just my Jacki's version of what it is, based on being a human, experience being on the receiving end of it, and having worked in it as a counsellor and things like that. Just my own kind of like take on it is that it's something that it's a personality type. We all have moments where we can be narcissistic, and the best way it was described to me is like, think of it as on a spectrum. Think of a clock face. If at 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, that's someone who's highly narcissistic. And somebody who's at 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, somebody is highly empathic. And then there's a bit of a spectrum in between. Some people like to sit at 10 o'clock. Some people live at 1:35. Yeah, they're always there. It doesn't matter what the situation is. They're going to try and get one up on somebody with a narcissistic type of way. And it's a bit of a balance. No, it's a bit of a magnetic thing where narcissists attract empathic type people, and empathic type people can end up leaning into people who are narcissistic until they learn better boundaries. Right, but those people are, if you've got a bright light that shines, I like to say that everything comes to it. Butterflies, moths, things you want, things you don't want, you're shining. So narcissists are going to seek out the people who they can try with.
Do you feel like narcissistic parents birth empathic children?
Bit of both. I think narcissistic parents can birth narcissists and empathic children. And in a family dynamic, you might have multiple different types of varying degrees, but narcissism tends to come from the family dynamic in which they've come from. Yeah, like it can be that they grew up around one, so it's learned behavior. They grew up in a society or a community that encouraged it, didn't nip it in the bud from a young age. And it can be a survival mechanism for that person, where it's a high, strong defense mechanism, where it's just entrenched. So by the time they're an adult now, it's quite an antisocial type personality.
Yeah. Interesting, because that's been a lot of topic too on social media about a lot of Black mothers raising narcissistic sons who end up, in this dating pool for other Black women to date, and it's hell,
But I think it's just an idea. Perhaps it comes from, have you ever heard of the work of Dr. Joy DeGure?
No.
She wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slavery Disorder. She refers
I've heard of the book.
Yes. She refers to it, for Black people, better to beat your child than the slave master to beat your child. So I wonder if it's perverted to an extreme where for some mothers, they've bigged up their child, padded them out with, oh, you're great, you can do no wrong, in order to thinking that they can protect them in some way. But actually, it's had a kind of a perverse knock-on effect where they are toxic.
It's interesting that you said that too, because you make me think about a mother that I actually know personally that grew up, I'd say, fairly in a abusive, aggressive home with the parenting style. But I noticed the way she mothers is so offhand and like almost in the extreme opposite, where I'm like, ooh, this might be dangerous in the long run because there's not really any discipline involved. But I could see like what she's trying to do there. She's really trying to, I don't know if it's like heal her own inner child, from the abuse that she received. So she's like,
maybe she's overcompensated in a wrong kind of way.
Yeah.
And with narcissism, they're people like that are boundary pushers. And boundary pushers are people who don't respect consequences, try to avoid consequences, but everything has consequences. Yeah. So if you don't instill consequences when raising a child, then there are no boundaries for them to push up against, and children benefit from boundaries.
I want to know, actually, to kind of shift gears again, could you explain a little bit about what your role is as a BACP accredited counselor, like what that entails?
So, unlike America, people are licensed by state.
Yes.
In Britain, we don't have states. It's it's a small country.
So if you're licensed, you're licensed.
If you're qualified, you're qualified. And they have a system where you can be accredited with certain bodies. The UKCP is one, and BACP is another, and there are others. So it's considered a standard to go for, a bit like you could be a driver, but you could get an additional type of license to teach, I don't know, sports cars. I'm just making something up off the top of my head. It's an additional requirement for many jobs. To not just be qualified, but be accredited. It doesn't mean you're a better counsellor, though. I've got to say that. It doesn't. In my experience, if you're good, you're good. Right, accredited or not. Anyone can write an accreditation.
I see.
Right.
But it's just that additional.
But it's an additional thing. And I have been accredited since 2016. And it's benefited me in being able to go for better jobs.
Yeah.
And you're held to a standard of that organisational body.
When you're accredited.
If somebody wants to report you strike you off, you're accountable.
You can lose that.
Yeah, you can lose your accreditation.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it holds you to a higher standard of being responsible for your role. And in the UK, my qualifications are as an integrative humanistic counsellor. Then I specialised in children, young people and adolescent mental well-being with an organisation called the Tavistock.
The Tavistock.
Yeah,
okay.
They're a well-known psychoanalytical clinic in the UK. So then I specialised in that at postgraduate level. And that's where I kind of realised, I think I've got a skill for working with children and young people. And then from that, I then went on to King's College and done another postgraduate where I specialised in something called CYP IAP. So the acronyms are like to do with mental health. Yeah. Okay. And that was to do around behavioural science with working with children at risk of conduct disorder. Yeah. So my field has gone from working generally as a counsellor and then specialising more into specifically children and young people, then specifically behaviours around unwanted behaviours in children and young people. Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say, like, you know, in your profession or your time of practicing, why do you feel that Black moms, and if you feel this way, I should rephrase the question, do you feel that Black moms deal with a different level of stress than white moms?
Yeah, in a way, as in my years of working with children and young people, mostly my work has been directly with the young person. They're the one who comes to see the therapist. When I work with children at risk of behavioural issues, it's therapy via the parent. So I'm coaching the parent live to work with their child.
Yes.
Right, so out of the remit of people that I've seen, very minimally have I worked with Black mums a lot. But when I have, the themes are the same. Yeah. So what I have...
Just within that, do you feel like there's a stigma?
Yeah.
Like, oh, me getting a coach to help me parent?
Yeah. And another Black woman.
And another Black woman.
Yes, right.
Because, I mean, the average Black woman or mother, if their mother is still living, they're already being coached by someone. Whether it's warranted or not, there's already like a village of women telling them how to mother.
Telling you what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Right, so what I've noticed is I can get to the point of having a conversation very openly with another Black mum, but them actually taking the step and going out for an external service to do it. Very, very, very rare.
Yeah.
And only at the extreme of I just need help. I can't take any more. I'm at breaking point.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually
schools referred them or somebody because their child might get kicked out of school. You know, extreme.
I saw a video actually the other day. God, it was heartbreaking, Jackie. This mother, I guess her child was probably somewhere in between 14 to 16. And she was saying, this was an American Black woman. She was like, she's reaching out to Instagram. You know you're down bad at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's like, y'all tell me what she's cursing, y'all tell me what to do. I want this MFer out of my house. She's like, he's already punched a hole through my wall. And she's like, I don't know what else to do. I called the cops. They tell me I can't get rid of him. I have to keep him, but he's disrespectful. He's whatever. And all I could see in the comments, where people were like, just put him out, do this, do that. But I felt like the minority that I was like, what trauma happened?
Yeah.
There is some trauma that is how his behavior was inexcusable. And, it was inappropriate, I should say. I shouldn't say maybe it was inexcusable, but it was, but not normal for a 14-year-old.
He didn't come out of nowhere.
He didn't come out of nowhere. Yeah. When you talk about that, what did you say? Repair and
rupture and
repair. He didn't come from this little goober that his mother was breastfeeding to just all of a sudden punching holes in the wall. Something may have happened where she is even unaware of, or maybe it's in her parenting. But I just found it interesting that she had reached out to Instagram, like
that's desperation.
Yeah, it's desperation.
Yeah.
So I wonder, do a lot of Black moms go to the point of, I'm not asking for help, then we're desperate.
Yes.
They're not
That's the
in-between.
theme. I'd say that's the theme.
Okay.
And in the UK, what my experience is at that desperation point, social services then intervene.
Yes.
And they make decisions on behalf of the parent.
It's interesting that you said there's always hope, because like in the comments, all I could see, people are like, it's too late. Like he's already gone. You've already lost him already. Do you feel like, from where you sit as a counselor, that there is a point in a child's life, I don't know if it's a certain age or whatever, where you're like,
the theory shows there are milestones in children's lives. And when it comes to behavioral things like conduct, the theory shows that around age 14, there is a change. The reason being is developmentally at that age, it's natural for a child to want to lean more into their peers than parental advice. And that's normal. Your child's supposed to want to do that because they're branching out. Can I do this? Can I do that?
Getting a sense of their own identity.
Right,
Yeah.
and peer influence is huge at that age upwards.
So now, once they reach 14, you're battling with
You're,
that.
yeah,
maybe
you're
in a
competing
way.
with their peers. You're competing with the guy on the corner that's telling them something else. Listen to your mama, listen to me. Like, you can make money doing this. Take this to the, that's the case in that extreme. It could be the extreme if they had a friend who was a good influence. Go and study, do your homework, let's pass this exam together. The influence of a peer is very prominent from around teens, mid-teens. It's normal. Just like a child starts walking by a certain age, starts talking by a certain age, the brain naturally is going to start looking for validation outside the home at a certain age.
So what could, in particularly, like single mothers do that are raising sons, in particularly, before that 14 age range comes into play, where they can really set their flag and have a strong foundation and bond? Where that child, even when they do cross over to becoming 14, peer influence may be there, but where they'll be like, okay, I'll check in with my mom. Let me ask my mom, and they still have that bond.
I think 2 things for that. For the parents who are 14 and under, referencing that, spending special time with your child and building that relationship is crucial, and having, first of all, just for your own self as a parent, have a very clear, even if you need to put it on paper, very clear understanding of what your own personal values are, what your family values are, what your house rules are. An example could be, in this house, we don't use profanity. We sit at the table. In this house, we take our shoes off when we go in the bedroom. I don't know, like everyone's house has got a different thing. Have a very clear understanding of what yours are. So then when you sharing them with your child, they understand what you're saying and why you're saying and why you don't use profanity and why you might not want to wear your shoes in your bedroom. I don't know, everyone's got different household rules. Everyone's got different rules. But a household needs
making
rules.
it clear.
Make it very clear
what those are.
What they are. And the earlier you can share them, and have that child have some input too. Maybe there's a rule there that they don't like, and you're like, Mom, I want to wear my shoes in my bedroom sometimes.
Having that child have input, does that fall into gentle parenting? I know, like, our generation has been like, oh, you guys are gentle parenting. Our kids didn't have any say so or so, but I think that's great for the kids to have.
Because it's a conversation, and conversation is a skill. You're teaching conversation skills. You're teaching how to compromise. You're teaching how to problem solve. You're teaching them that they're worth listening to. So you're doing a lot of different things. Obviously, the buck's going to stop at a certain point with the parent, but there's nothing wrong with taking a child's opinion. Sometimes they know things better than what we know. And but basically, having an idea of what the family principles and values are, and finding a way to incorporate it in the things that you do. You don't have to nag them and badger them. Oh, in our family, what we always do is this. No,
it's
you can make it fun.
That no say so and lack of conversation and communication skills, that's also, post-trauma as well, like passed down from slavery. Like, nope, you just do what I say. No, I'm gonna beat you. And I remember a friend of mine said this many years ago to me. I didn't get it then, but I do kind of understand what he was saying now. He was saying, as a whole, generically speaking, not everyone as an individual, but a lot of times Black people, especially in lower income societies, raise their children to be blue collar workers in a way, like, where you don't have as much to say so, where you're clocking in or you're fired if you're not on time, that kind of thing. Where white people, are raising their kids to be, executives or entrepreneurs or that kind of thing, where there is communication and there is negotiations involved that start empowering them early on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those things, I think, influence how somebody's attitude is to money, the blockages that someone can have to money, for example. And it's the messages that we are programming into our children. We need to take note of them, but only once we've checked our own self with what we've programmed in our own minds, and unprogram some of the stuff.
So it's a lot of deprogramming that like, we even have to do.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And unfortunately, a lot of us are doing it in real time. You know what I mean? You're like,
in live, like so I think that's the way forward personally, and I'm always open to change. I know that there's this thing people that say, "Oh, people don't like change. People don't like change." I do. I like, if it's a good change.
If it's a good change,
not? If it's a good change. I think if we've been doing something for a particular way for a certain amount of time, take some of it that works, and some of it hasn't always worked, change it.
And change
something
that.
different.
Yeah. I mean, same with me, like as a, there's many things that my mom did in the way that she raised me. I'm like, what, I'm going to continue with that. And then some that I'm like, I don't think that will work, and I don't want to bring that along. But you can cherry pick and say, that works for me and that doesn't. But I think a lot of times as Black women and Black mothers, we don't a lot of times allow ourselves to even have that freedom. I think we're just so weighed down in people bondage, and then there's the society, there's the people bondage like within your family, and that construct within society as well.
Yes.
And when I think about society was when you were giving your presentation, which I want to talk a bit about with your parenting program, I was actually intrigued, and I'm going to pull it up. The parenting pyramid that you talked about. So at the very top, and I'll show this on the screen, but there's consequences under there, ignoring, clear commands, praise and reward, attending child-led play. I was wondering at the very top about, the two things I guess at the top, the ignoring and the consequences. When those things come into play in public settings,
right?
How much of that do you feel like is a struggle on top of a struggle for Black moms because we're in public? Like, say we're in a grocery store, and before, like, I grew up with my mom saying, Ashley, before we go in this store, you're not getting anything, so don't bother asking, don't blah 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 blah. I come out of that store every time with something, with a toy. She'd go against that boundary. It just was whatever. But I wonder, I know for me, with my son, so my eldest, who's on the autistic, he's on the autistic spectrum. A little goes into play for me with embarrassment, to be honest, with him not wanting, because my mother used to say, I'm not worried about you embarrassing me because I'll embarrass you. My autistic child, now he doesn't care about me embarrassing him. He doesn't have, they don't have that. You know what I mean? About like, he's like, no, I'm gonna embarrass you. Either you gonna get this or, you know what I mean? So some of that can come into play. And I wonder just in general for moms, Black moms that already are going into stores and stuff and maybe white societies and already feel that, like I said, the monster on their back, where they don't hold the line maybe like they normally would because they are in a society that they're the minority of, and they're like, let me just get out this store, or let me just whatever, and they don't hold the line on the consequences and the ignoring and those kind of things. What do you think about that?
Well, that parenting pyramid is a great tool. It comes from a parenting program called Incredible Years, and it also comes from another model from King's College. So it wasn't something I developed. It's something that I was trained.
You were trained
through, And as the pyramid is formed, the bottom is heavy and it goes up to the top, right? So the consequences and ignoring is at the top, is it?
Right. Consequences is, at the top.
Right. So what that's implying is that it's done sparingly, and with consideration. Whereas the things that are at the bottom are things you just dish out freely, right? So the consequences with regards to, say, going into a supermarket, a child wanting something that they don't want and how that might feel. I think for parents, the worst case scenario is your child having a tantrum, showing you up in public, and your voice meaning nothing to your child. You telling them to stop and they just continuing. You telling them to come back and they run off. You telling them to sit still in their stroller and they fighting to get out of it, or them pulling things off the shelf.
Or they get stiff on you.
They're doing all kinds of things, and the shame that can come in from other parents looking at that you and judging you and thinking, oh, she doesn't have a handle on this. If I was doing, if my child, what I would do is this, and this. But I don't know that white women don't feel the same, Chinese women don't feel the same, Indian women don't feel the same. I think what happens with black people generally is perhaps we're going into shops that aren't run by black people, and we have a negative view on us sometimes anyway, that we come with trouble, and it starts young. Because our child's just showing themselves to be like giving a bit of trouble. But I think it happens to all children, to all mothers. And I also think mothers tend to be the easiest target in society to point at and say, they got it wrong. What was his mother like? What was their mother like? What was her mother like? It's an easy target, a bit of a lazy target, because it takes a little bit more.
So easy, Jackie, yes.
Right, and I think women generally women and men handle things differently. Men tend to externalize their emotions and feelings. Women tend to internalize it. That's just typical of how it kind of shows. You know, like for example, a typical teen boy might punch a wall and a female teen might self-harm. It doesn't mean that's always the case. Others can do the others, but it's a typical behavior of what a feminine and what a masculine would do with something uncomfortable. So that kind of shame and embarrassment, it would be very typical for a mother to internalize it and think, I didn't do a good job, I should do better, oh me, I've done something wrong. And that can become it can develop into maladaptive behavior.
Your child can feel that.
They can feel it. Yeah, they can. And that for that mother, if she's not very self-aware, she might not even be able to put her finger on what it is she's feeling. She might just want to get it away, push it away.
Just push it away. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, you say that about, the societal pressures on the moms versus dads. Like when my child goes out, like for example, even this morning, I was busy like setting up with the podcast. And so I just kind of brushed their hair very quickly, but their dad takes them to school. But I was like after they left, I was like, that my youngest one, I don't know if I brushed his hair like enough. But I was like, they're probably like, he doesn't look, his hair isn't intact. But they're never gonna, even though dad is bringing them, they're never gonna say, dad didn't brush his hair right this morning. They're like, where's his mom? What happened?
She missed the piece.
She missed the piece there, or even just taken to being a wife, if someone comes to your house and it's out of order or whatever, they're never gonna look at the man and go, he needs to tidy up a bit. And
I know,
what's wrong with this woman?
The biscuits aren't crunchy or something. These biscuits are not very, Where does she shop?
Exactly. It's just those societal pressures. So I do understand what you're saying, that all women, all mothers are dealing with these things. But then that extra layer with being black already, then it's like, they come with trouble. Then you got that extra layer.
I think which doesn't maybe get mentioned enough is racism, which let's keep it very simple and easy. A lot of black people have experienced racism. Racism is traumatizing.
It is, and for those of us that are growing up in westernized culture, we don't even, because we live with that trauma every day, it just becomes a part of our body. It becomes even for me, I didn't realize I was quite traumatized until moving out. I knew aware of some of the trauma, but I don't think I knew to the degrees of the trauma until now I'm living outside of that society. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, in the store and stuff with my son, with both of them. I still, discipline them the same, the one that's neurodivergent and the one that's neurotypical. What's just different about it is just the awareness of why one is doing a certain thing. I have the information. He's probably overstimulated. Sorry, this came out. Hold on one second. I have the information. He's overstimulated. It's too loud. He doesn't like that music. It smells funny in here. That kind of thing.
These are things that need to be considered. And I think as well, I'm also parenting a child who's neurodivergent.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that.
These are the things that add more spice.
Yes, you're spicy.
To the experience. Yes. And I think as more awareness comes about it, my hope is that as a community, we are more accepting of it. We're not looking at that child as they'll just need an extra smack or something. No, they just need less try. I think actually, if more people learn about neurodivergence, it would make for a more pleasant world, because it forces you to have better manners. And to involve that person's thoughts, feelings more.
Yeah. Do you feel like, as a mom of a neurodivergent son, because different people feel different ways about it, and they don't like labels. Like I know some moms that are like, oh, I don't want a label. I don't want people to know my son's neurodivergent, because then they're gonna make assumptions about him. And so I'm on the opposite end of that. Well, I like the labels because I feel like the more people hear about, neurodivergence or autism or any of the things that are on that color wheel of the spectrum, it's destigmatizing it. But the more we don't label it or don't mention it, it's still stigmatized, I feel. That's my own personal thing. What do you think about that?
As a counsellor, bit of both. I wouldn't treat, if somebody came to me and described themselves as neurodivergent, I'm taking their word for it. They don't need to show me a piece of paper to say, oh, well, this is like, I've got it. It's not a qualification like that. But if somebody has it, and I was to read their case notes before I've met them, it makes my life easier, because I know with that title comes some other things that I need to be considerate of, and I need to meet them where they need to be met. And I'm open at any time to be considerate to people. If it helps their life better, I'm up for it. Like if it's not putting me out in any way. So I think the label is more of a positive than a negative. I think the only thing that makes it negative is the people who have had experience of it. The negative reasons would be, at worst, somebody's judgmental about it and being mean to that person about it. And at best, it would be that they just don't know enough about it. Like, to me, it would be trying to pander to the negative versions of why you wouldn't want it. I don't want to live that kind of life. I want it to be a positive thing. And I find the labels, it's like, for me, it was a relief, because I knew there was something.
You knew there was something.
And it's not a thing that is a negative thing. I see it as an additional gift. So I don't see it as a negative. I don't mind. If somebody has a negative view on it, that's their opinion.
That's their opinion.
Do you. I'm doing me. No two autistic people are the same. So as well, my son is moderate to mild, I'd say. You wouldn't know unless something happens, and then you're like, that's different.
If you're paying close enough attention, or maybe another mom, though, I may be able to notice. Like,
you'll notice. And I kind of also think that now we're at the point where maybe more professions are acknowledging it. There's more diagnostic stuff out there, but it doesn't mean that it's new. People like to think it's new. I don't think it's
more
new.
Information
and I think in our communities, our parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles were probably autistic too. And we just had to
listen.
My
very
husband
rigid.
And I
have realized where we have something. I'm like, so many things I can relate to. My
ADHD,
son
autism, dyslexic, all different
things.
Yes.
We're a neurospicy family. For sure. Yes.
Exactly. So I think the more conversations that I had about it, I don't feel the need for there to be shame attached to it. And if there is, I think for people who feel that way, to take a deeper dive why they feel that way.
It's just being uninformed. I think that's a huge part of it. And being afraid. And when you're uninformed, I feel like that brings fear. Because what you don't know about, you fear, My last question to you that I want to talk about is you being am I saying it correctly, a parent trainer? Is that what you call it?
So I'm trained, the qualification is parent training. I don't like the term parent training because it sounds like you're training a puppy or something. Something, So parental coaching.
Parental coaching. Tell me why that is a really big asset for a mom or a father or both.
Well, if you went to say you had a goal you wanted to achieve, you've got something coming up, you go to the gym and you've got a trainer. You want to build a certain look, you want to get right, it's a trainer that does it. You want to be skilled in something, you get an external person who's a professional in it to help you do something. The similar thing applies to parenting.
I love that. Like you want to be a gymnast or
you
want to go to the Olympics.
Chance it on yourself.
You want to be with the next Whitney Houston, you're gonna get a vocal coach.
Right, you're gonna get
right?
a vocal coach. Yeah, right.
So that's the thought. You want to be the best parent that you can be.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm gonna get a coach.
Right.
Okay.
It's absolutely possible. The thing is with parental coaching is I would say it's suited for parents who are struggling with a child's behavior. Yeah. And you want to have more resources than what you already have. You want to know what else you can do other than snapping at them or punishing them or
snapping out.
Yeah. So with behavioral therapies, it's focusing on behaviors. Behaviors are things you can see. And they're not what you think might be going on or what you reckon or I feel a vibe. You know, it's what you can actually see. So behaviors that are social and antisocial and some in between. Like say, for example, a child hitting a sibling or snatching, not saying thank you. Those are behaviors you can see. So they might be considered antisocial behaviors.
Okay.
Pro-social behaviors are things like sharing, saying thank you, involving other people in their play and things like that. That's a pro-social type behavior. So a parent, for example, might have a child where they want to increase the social behaviors and reduce the antisocial behaviors. And that can be done by using a parental coach. Because what a parental coach is going to notice is the language, the body language, find activities for that parent to do and work through a structured method of about 6 weeks to get to that goal that parent wants to achieve.
It's about a 6 week. It's a 6 week.
6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, depending on the person. So, for example, I'll give you an example. A goal might be, I want my children to be in bed by 8:30. I try it, but actually 10 o'clock, I'm still chasing after them to get in bed. I'm putting them to bed, they get out again. They don't stay in their bed. There's a lot of crying at bedtime. There's a lot of fuss at bedtime. I just want them to be 8:30 bed. That's the goal. So that would start with, I'm sure at some point the parent's saying to that child, it's bedtime now. I want you to go to bed, right? So it's about command, working on the parent's command, the language they use, the tone of voice they use, sticking to it. Consequences, what's the consequence for not going to bed at 8 and getting out of bed? Is there a consequence? And all these things are built in very intentionally throughout a tailored program to that parent's specific needs.
Yeah. And do you feel like, what would you say, I guess, lastly, to kind of destigmatize this? Because I'm sure there's so many mothers out there that are like, listen, I could really use a Jackie right now, but my mom, my grandma is going to be like, what? We don't do that. Listen, this is all you need to do is just, give them a good smack and they'll be in bed by 8:30. In my day, we went to bed when, my mom said go to bed because I was afraid of my mom. I hear a lot of stories like that. People say, I feared my mom. I fear, No, like what would you just probably say to someone that's like, I really want to press that button and I want to call Jackie or I want to email her. I'm just afraid about, making that extra step, to doing so because of just, what my family may say. It might be considered insulting maybe to their family.
Maybe, and I get that. And it's one of those interventions, it's a therapeutic intervention. There's no point me denying it. It is a therapeutic intervention. It's one of those things where it can get murky where there's ego involved. It can get very murky. And people, as humans, we can do this to ourselves all the time. Our ego gets involved and we end up making decisions that aren't best for us. We just want to pander to the ego rather than actually step back and do what's best. So it can get murky like that. And it's one of those interventions that is actually known that you're targeting hard to reach parents.
Yeah.
It's just known. I'm not choosing an easy route. I like a challenge. I'm sure you heard. I like to go to different countries.
Places and hey, I'll figure it out when I get there.
So the target is hard to reach parents. I'm not surprised when I get a parent and they come with a load of, well, why should the target audience is a hard to reach parent.
It's a hard to reach parent.
So if parents are listening to this and they're like, I'd like to, well, I don't know how this sits with you, but perhaps consider that you might be a hard to reach parent. Be real with you. And with hard to reach parents, the research shows that the trajectory for that child, they miss out on early interventions. Early interventions are what prevent later problems when you nip something in the bud sooner. You can run a household on fear. because people have done it and we've done it generationally, you might want to consider there are other options than fear. Fear is one tool that people use, intimidation. Oh, I will give you something to cry for. Or if you don't get back in bed, that's an intimidation method. And the child's going to model that at some point in their life. So I'd say consider other ways. That's one way, but perhaps you can train your child in a way where they are interested in your command. You don't have to use intimidation and fear. You can say, it's bedtime, please go to bed. And they listen.
Well, fear too. I mean, my personal thing, I feel like it's a cheap win. Like you
It
win,
is.
it's like a quick, immediate reaction. But in the long run, I feel like you lose when your child's, voice is less, or they're not, they don't know how to advocate for themselves later in life. And then you realize, oh, that whatever I used to do, that contributed maybe to this thing.
And it is it's a shortcut. It solves the problem immediately. And if somebody's pressured for time, they've got to go to bed, they've got work, two jobs, 3 jobs, they're pressured.
Which is a lot of the case for a lot of us.
Right.
The pressure cooker.
Yes.
Like I said, the social media woman that was like, I'm going to lose my job. you
Right.
know? Yeah.
So it's having a look at your life kind of on a map and seeing what needs to change. And it could be that your parenting style needs adapting. Yeah.
And sometimes, on theme, you got to get out of where you are. Maybe it is changing your atmosphere. Sometimes it's that.
Yeah, it brings a different side of you out.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to leave your Instagram. Are you active on Instagram?
I am, and anyone interested in the upcoming course I'm putting together, they can email me.
They can email you.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I'll make sure to include that information for you guys as well. And Jackie, we probably need a part 2 because there's
you're
there's
welcome
so many
to. I love
things,
that.
that I feel like I see, that are talked about on social media. And this is really an evergreen conversation with parenting and on brand, for the podcast. So, well, until next time, guys, thank you. And like I said, continue to color outside the lines. We will continue to have guests on here that encourage us, inspire us, inform us about mothering and coloring outside the lines. Until next time.